Right now, in the space above your head, there is a room you almost never go into, and it is hotter than the hottest day your town has ever recorded. On a 90-degree afternoon, the air in your attic is sitting somewhere between 130 degrees and 150 degrees. That is not a guess. Stick a thermometer up there in July and look at it. And every degree of that heat is pressing down through your ceiling into the rooms where you live all afternoon and deep into the night. Your air conditioner is not fighting the weather outside, it is fighting the furnace you are storing in your own roof. The old builders knew about that furnace, and they did something we stopped doing. They built the house so it emptied that heat out on its own with no fan, no power, no machine. A house that cooled itself. Not perfectly, not magically, but enough that families lived through Pennsylvania and Ohio summers in two-story farmhouses with no air conditioning at all and slept fine. The knowledge to do it still works exactly as well today as it did in 1890. We just sealed it shut, sold ourselves a bigger machine, and forgot the house was ever supposed to breathe. In the last two videos, I took you underground. The root cellar holds 52 degrees and the spring house is built over cold running water. A lot of you asked the natural next question. You said, that is storing food cold, but what about the house itself? What about keeping the place I actually live in cool in August without a $400 power bill? This is that video. And this time we are not going down into the earth. We are going up into the hottest, most ignored, most misunderstood space in your entire home. Let me start with where the heat actually comes from, because almost everybody gets this wrong. You feel a hot day and you assume the heat is creeping in through your walls and windows. It is 90 degrees Fahrenheit outside, so the warm air pushes inside. That happens a little, but it is not the main event. The main event is over your head, and it is radiation. The sun beats down on your roof all day. A dark asphalt shingle roof on a sunny afternoon can reach 150 degrees Fahrenheit, even 160 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to cook on, hot enough to burn your hand. That roof soaks up the sun's energy and radiates it straight down into the attic. The attic air heats up, the attic floor heats up, and that mass of trapped heat sits right above your bedrooms and radiates down into them for hours, long after the sun has set and the outside air has cooled off. That is why your upstairs is still stifling at 10 o'clock at night. The outdoors cooled down. Your attic did not, because nothing let the heat out. Here is the one piece of physics that runs this whole video, and it is so simple a child knows it. Hot air rises. That's it. That's the engine. Hot air is less dense than cool air, so it floats upward, and the cooler, heavier air sinks beneath it. Engineers have a formal name for it, the stack effect, or buoyancy-driven ventilation, and they fill textbooks with the math. But the idea is the thing you already know from every campfire and every chimney you've ever seen. Heat goes up. If you give the hottest air at the top of your house a way out, it leaves on its own and it pulls cooler air in behind it to take its place. No fan required. The temperature difference does all the work for free 24 hours a day, as long as you let it. The old builders built entire houses around that one fact. Walk up to a real 19th century farmhouse and look at it. The ceilings are high, not for grandeur, but because hot air rises, and a tall ceiling keeps that heat up above where people sit and sleep. There are windows placed on opposite walls, low on the shaded side and high on the other, so a breeze pulls straight through. Cross ventilation, the simplest cooling there is. On the grander houses, there's a cupola, that little tower at the very peak of the roof with louvered slots on every side. It's not decoration, it's the chimney for the whole house. The hottest air in the building climbs all the way up through the structure and pours out those louvers at the top, and as it leaves, it sucks cooler air in through the lower windows. The house exhales. Even the modest farmhouses had gable vents. those triangular louvered openings up near the peak on the end walls, doing the same job on a smaller scale, giving the hot attic air a door at the top so it could climb out instead of baking down into the rooms. And it wasn't only about the attic. The same people thought about the whole house as a system for moving heat. The summer kitchen, a separate little building, or a wing with its own door, kept the heat of cooking and canning out of the main house entirely on the hottest days. Deep porches and wide eaves threw shade across the walls and windows during the peak afternoon sun, so the walls never got a chance to soak up the heat in the first place. Thick masonry and stone walls acted as a flywheel, slow to warm in the day, slow to cool at night, smoothing out the swing, shade trees on the south and west sides, light-colored surfaces that bounced the sun away instead of drinking it in. None of it was high technology. All of it was a builder paying attention to where heat comes from and where it wants to go, and then helping it go there. And here's the thing that ought to make you trust this more than any single clever trick. It isn't a regional folk habit. Every culture that ever mastered a hot climate, working completely independently, arrived at the very same physics. In the deserts of Persia, they built tall towers called badgers, wind catchers, rising above the roofline to scoop moving air high up and funnel it down through the house, often passing it over cool water or down into the earth on the way. Some of those towers have stood for centuries and still work. Across the American South, settlers built the dog trot house, 2 cabins under one roof with an open breezeway running between them, a covered corridor that channeled every breeze straight through the living space. The porch and the breezeway weren't charmed, they were the cooling system. In the Southwest, thick adobe walls did the flywheel trick, soaking up the desert day's heat so slowly that the inside stayed cool until evening, then releasing it through the cold desert night. Mediterranean houses were built tall and narrow around shaded courtyards with small windows on the sunny side, and the whole structure painted white to throw the sun back. Different continents, different centuries, no contact between them, and they all landed on the same handful of moves. Catch the breeze, send the hot air up and out, shade the walls, use heavy mass to buffer the swing, and reflect the sun before it ever gets in. When that many separate people solve a problem the same way, you're not looking at superstition. You're looking at physics that simply works, rediscovered every time a builder paid honest attention. The American farmhouse with its cupola and high ceilings was just this continent's version of a worldwide answer. So what happened? Same honest answer as the cellar and the spring house, and it's worth telling straight because the truth is more useful than a villain. Nobody outlawed the cupola, nobody banned attic ventilation. What happened is that cheap mechanical air conditioning arrived after the Second World War, and once you could just buy a machine to push the heat out, the house no longer had to be built to do it itself. And building it to do it itself cost the builder money. The cupola, the high ceilings, the careful window placement, the deep porches, the thick walls. So in the great post-war building boom, when tens of millions of houses went up fast and cheap, the builders quietly stopped paying for any of it. They built low, flat ceilings, sealed the attic up tight, punched in 2 undersized vents, and put a bigger air conditioner on the bill to make up the difference. Why engineer a house to breathe when you can sell the buyer a compressor instead? And it worked in the sense that the houses stayed cool as long as the machine ran and the power bill got paid. The trouble is the same trouble we keep finding on this channel. The mechanical fix is convenient, and it is also a permanent dependency. Your house can no longer cool itself even a little. The moment the power goes out in a summer storm, the house becomes the furnace it always secretly was, because nothing in its design lets the heat escape. You are not just paying the bill every month. You traded away the building's own ability to handle heat, and most people never knew the trade was being made. It was made for them by a builder following the cheapest path 2 generations ago. Now here is the part I want to be careful and honest about, because this is where a lot of internet advice gets reckless. The old houses were not sealed, and the modern building world has spent 40 years telling you to seal everything, foam every crack, wrap the house in plastic, trap the air, and for a lot of energy goals, in winter especially, tight building has real merit. I am not going to tell you the building scientists are simply wrong, because they are not. But there is a real tension here, and the honest version is this. A sealed, dead air attic with poor ventilation becomes a heat battery in summer, holding warmth against your ceiling all night. The old approach, let the attic breathe, give the hot air away out the top and cool air away in the bottom, genuinely reduces that load. The two ideas can be reconciled, but you have to do it on purpose and you have to respect moisture, which I will get to. Anybody who tells you there is zero trade-off in either direction is selling you something. So if you are sitting in a house built in 1975 thinking this is all fine for someone restoring a Victorian farmhouse, but it has nothing to do with you, stay with me because this next part is exactly for you. And most of it is free or close to it. You cannot put a cupola on your ranch house this weekend. You do not need to. You need to understand what the cupola did and recreate it with what your house already has. Start in the attic itself on a cool morning with a flashlight. Almost every American house built between about 1940 and 1990 already has gable vents. Those triangular louvered openings up near the roof peak on the end walls. Go look at them from the inside. In a huge number of houses, they are half blocked, painted over, stuffed with insulation some contractor blew in carelessly, screened with mesh that is rusted solid or full of an old bird's nest. A blocked vent cannot move air. Clearing them, pulling the debris and replacing a rusted screen with fresh aluminum or stainless mesh, which costs a few dollars, is the single cheapest improvement you can make. And for a lot of houses, it is the whole problem. You want clear air coming in low and clear air leaving high, so the stack effect can actually run. The second move is to deliberately drive the airflow the way the old builders did, using the day's own temperature swing. After sunset, when the outside air finally drops below your indoor temperature, open the lowest windows on the shaded side of the house a few inches and make sure those attic vents up top are clear. The hot air that built up all day rises, exits high, and pulls cool night air through your living space behind it. By morning, the wood frame of your house has shed most of the heat it stored, and your air conditioner, if you run one at all, starts the day fighting a cool house instead of a hot one. This is the single most powerful free thing you can do, and it is exactly the principle behind a whole house fan, which is just a motor doing on purpose what the stack effect does on its own. The third move is to attack the heat where it actually enters the roof by radiation. This is where the real mainstream building science backs the old instinct. A reflective surface on or under the roof intercepts that radiant heat before it loads up your attic. Lighter colored roofing reflects more sun than dark shingles, and that is not folklore, it is measured. The Department of Energy and Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory have decades of cool roof research showing meaningfully lower attic temperatures and lower cooling loads from reflective surfaces. And inside the attic, a radiant barrier, a reflective foil layer stapled to the underside of the rafters with an air gap, reflects radiant heat back out instead of letting it soak into the attic. These are real products sold at any home center, installable in an afternoon, and the science behind them is sound and uncontroversial. I am not going to throw a fake number at you because the honest truth is good enough. In a hot, sunny climate, reflecting the sun off your roof and blocking radiant heat in your attic genuinely cuts how hard your house heats up. How much depends on your climate, your roof color, your insulation, which is exactly why I will not pretend it is a single magic figure. Now, the honest cautions, because this is the part the reckless versions skip, and it is the part that protects your house. Ventilation and moisture are linked. The reason the modern building world worries about attic airflow is condensation. In some climates, especially humid ones and cold winters, moving the wrong air through an attic can cause moisture to condense and rot wood or grow mold. The old farmhouses got away with breathing attics, partly because of how they were built and where they sat. So the rule is continuous balanced airflow, low intake and high exhaust working together is far safer than air that starts and stops or sits dead in pockets. If you have a complicated roof, a humid climate, or you're unsure, this is worth a conversation with someone who knows your region's building science before you start opening or sealing things. Second, code sets a minimum amount of attic ventilation, typically expressed as a ratio of vent area to attic floor area, and that minimum is a floor, not a ceiling. You can add more passive ventilation without violating anything, but check before you cut new openings. Third, restoring proper airflow generally protects a roof rather than harming it because a baking attic shortens shingle life from underneath. Never block or alter ventilation in a way that traps moisture to chase a few degrees. The goal is a house that breathes correctly, not a house with random holes in it. The thing that stays with me about all this isn't any single trick. It's that a house used to be a tool for managing heat, and we let it become a dumb box that depends entirely on a machine. An old farmhouse in July was doing a dozen quiet things at once, shading its own walls, breathing through its peak, storing the night's cool in its masonry, keeping the cooking heat outside, none of it costing a cent, all of it working whether the power was on or not. We didn't lose that because it failed. We lost it because a machine made it optional, a builder found it cheaper to leave out, and a generation grew up in sealed boxes, never knowing a house could do any of it. The heat above your head is real. Go measure it. That's the whole point. You can check every word of this yourself with the $10 thermometer. The stack effect is real and it never stopped working. Hot air still rises tonight exactly as it did 100 years ago. The vents in your gable ends are probably already there, half blocked, waiting. The sun still reflects off a light surface and soaks into a dark one. None of the physics changed. We just stopped designing for it and started paying a monthly bill to ignore it. So here's what I want from you. Go up into your attic this week with a flashlight and a thermometer and tell me two things in the comments, what temperature it reads up there, and what you find when you look at your gable vents, clear, painted shut, stuffed, or sealed with foam. Drop your state too, because climate changes everything about what works. I read every comment, and somebody who just found this channel needs to read yours. That's how the knowledge comes back. One attic, one cleared vent, one house learning to breathe again at a time. And subscribe, because next week I'm staying with heat but turning to the walls. Why a thick stone or brick wall kept an old house cool in the day and warm at night with no machine at all. The thing engineers call thermal mass, and the old builders just called building properly. It's the same story as the breathing attic built into the bones of the house. I'll see you there.